The courtroom was thick with tension, a heavy silence hanging in the air. On one side, the Homeowner Association members sat confidently, smug, grins on their faces. Across from them stood a young disabled woman, her posture straight, her eyes determined. She was not just fighting for herself. She was fighting for her family legacy. The result of giving up, well, she was not about to find out. She would fight until the end. And to see the Homeowner Association's downfall, you had to watch the story unfold till the very end. The Homeowner Association's plan was cruel and calculated. They started small, throwing out false violations for things that did not even exist. A chipped paint fine here, an unapproved wheelchair ramp there. Each fine was another blow to her already fragile heart. But it was not just about the fines. They wanted her to fall. They knew she did not have the money to fight back. Their goal was simple: push her into financial ruin until she could not pay anymore. Then they would take her home. They thought she was an easy target, a young disabled girl grieving the loss of her parents, standing alone against a powerful system. The Homeowner Association knew her pain and saw it as an opportunity. They did not care about the memories tied to her home. Their only goal was to take it from her piece by piece. She was not just fighting for a roof over her head. She was fighting for everything her parents had worked so hard for. Their legacy, their love, the home that held their memories. But as the fines mounted and the pressure grew, it felt like a battle she could not win. Every new letter was another reminder of how alone she felt. The community that once offered her support now seemed to turn their backs. The same neighbors who had offered condolences after her parents' passing now ignored her struggle. The betrayal of the people she once trusted hurt more than anything. Fighting was not just about the house. It was about the memory of her parents, the love they gave her, and the future they had dreamed of. For her, the stakes had never been higher. She was not just fighting the Homeowner Association. She was fighting to keep everything that still meant something to her. The pressure was unbearable, but if she gave in now, she would lose everything. The moment she stepped into the courtroom, the tension in the air was thick. The Homeowner Association members seated confidently exchanged smug glances. They were certain of their victory, convinced that she was nothing more than a grieving girl, weak and alone, with no real chance against them. They had no idea what she had been preparing behind the scenes while they mocked her, assuming her disability made her incapable of understanding the law. She had spent countless sleepless nights studying legal books, researching property law, and learning everything she could about the Homeowner Association's past cases. Each piece of knowledge she gained brought her closer to exposing their lies. To the Homeowner Association, she was just an easy target, someone they could crush under the weight of their financial power and legal expertise. But what they did not know was that she had already turned their game against them. The mocking tone of the Homeowner Association lawyer echoed in her ears, but she did not react. "You really think you can fight this?" he sneered. "You are just a girl. This is real law, not some school debate. You do not stand a chance inside." The words stung. They always did. People had always underestimated her, her disability overshadowing her intelligence. But today, it was not about proving them wrong. It was about fighting for everything she had left. The grief of losing her parents still weighed heavily on her, but she was not just fighting for a roof over her head. She was fighting for their memory, for the life they had built for her. Every fine, every false violation was an attack not just on her property, but on the very legacy of her parents. As the lawyer continued, she sat still, gripping the sides of her chair tightly. The pressure of the moment was suffocating, but she did not show it. She had been preparing for this for so long, and she knew the moment to strike was near. The silence in the courtroom seemed to stretch on forever as the Homeowner Association lawyer wrapped up his argument, confident that she would crumble under the weight of his words. But she did not. She did not flinch. She did not back down. Her heart raced, but her face was calm. She was ready. "Your Honor," she said, her voice steady despite the storm of emotions raging inside her, "I would like to address the evidence." The room fell silent, and for the first time the smug smiles on the Homeowner Association's faces faltered. They thought they had won, but she was about to turn the tables. She had spent months studying, preparing for this moment. She was not just fighting to keep her home, she was fighting for the memories of her parents, for everything they had given her. And with each step she took toward the evidence table, the tension in the room grew. The fight was no longer just about rules. It was about justice, and she was ready to claim it. The Homeowner Association had no idea what was coming. "Your Honor," she began again, her voice steady but firm, "this next piece of evidence is crucial." She lifted a series of photographs, each one carefully time-stamped and meticulously catalogued. "These pictures show that the alleged violations were never present on my property. As the Homeowner Association claims, the condition of my property was well within the guidelines before they began issuing fines. The real violation here is the Homeowner Association's actions." The room remained silent, all eyes on the photographs. The lawyer's face drained of color as the judge leaned in to examine them for the first time. The opposing counsel shifted uncomfortably in his seat, unsure of how to counter the evidence laid before him. But she did not let up. She pushed forward, each word more powerful than the last. "These fines, these fabricated claims, they are not just an inconvenience. They are an attempt to force me into financial ruin, to drive me out of my home." Her voice grew stronger with each sentence, the realization that she was finally being heard filling her with the quiet confidence. "They want me to give up, but I will not. Not this time." The lawyer tried to recover, his voice shaky, but it was clear. The damage had already been done. He had underestimated her. They all had. She was not just the grieving girl they thought they could manipulate. She was a force to be reckoned with. As she continued, her confidence grew. She could see the cracks in the Homeowner Association's defenses. The smirks that had once filled their faces were replaced by frowns, and the whispers among the board members grew louder. The pieces of their case were crumbling one by one until they had nothing left to stand on. The courtroom felt different now. The tension had shifted. No longer was it her against an overpowering system, but rather her standing tall in front of an organization whose lies had been exposed. As she looked over at the lawyer, now fumbling with his papers, she felt a sense of relief building inside her. The weight she had carried for so long, the grief, the fear, the constant battle, was beginning to lift. This was not just about keeping her home anymore. This was about reclaiming everything. She had lost the love of her parents, the security they had provided, and her own belief in her strength. Every argument, every piece of evidence she presented was not just a step toward victory. It was a reclaiming of herself, a healing of the wounds that had been inflicted on her. As the final pieces of the Homeowner Association's case crumbled away, the daughter stood still, her heart pounding in her chest. But for the first time in what felt like forever, it was not with fear, it was with hope. The courtroom, once filled with tension and doubt, now held the weight of what was about to happen. She had done it. She had fought back, and she had won. The courtroom felt heavy with tension as the daughter stood up, her heart racing with anticipation. She had been waiting for this moment, the moment she would show the Homeowner Association just how wrong they were. The lawyer for the Homeowner Association, still confident and smug, had been relentlessly pushing the idea that she was just an easy target, a grieving girl, someone who would fold under pressure. But they had no idea what she had prepared. With a steady breath, she began to speak, her voice calm but firm. "Your Honor, I would like to enter into evidence a series of reports for my property inspections." She placed the documents on the table, each one showing that the so-called violations listed by the Homeowner Association were false. They were fabrications designed to create a reason to fine her and ultimately steal her home. She could feel the eyes of the courtroom on her as she slowly walked back to her seat. She was not just defending herself anymore. She was exposing the truth that had been hidden behind lies and manipulation, the truth that she had spent so many sleepless nights uncovering. As the judge flipped through the reports, the silence grew heavier. The smug expressions on the Homeowner Association's legal team began to fade, replaced by confusion and discomfort. "Your Honor, the fines against me were imposed without due process," she continued, now walking toward the center of the room. "The violations were created out of thin air, designed to bankrupt me and force me to lose my home." Her words were sharp, each one cutting through the lies like a knife. With each piece of evidence she presented, the Homeowner Association's case began to crumble one by one. The lawyer for the Homeowner Association attempted to recover to claim that the reports were incorrect or irrelevant. But his voice was wavering. He could see as much as the rest of them could that the pieces were not fitting together anymore. The confident tone he had started with was long gone. His hands were shaking slightly as he rifled through his case files, desperate to find something to counter her claims. But the daughter was not done yet. She stepped forward again, holding up a contract from the Homeowner Association, one she had discovered buried in the depths of their files. "This contract," she said, "shows that the Homeowner Association violated its own policies when they moved the property lines. The changes they made were unauthorized and without consent." The room was still, and the judge's eyes narrowed as he read through the document. The truth was undeniable. The atmosphere in the courtroom shifted. The confidence the Homeowner Association had walked in with was now replaced with panic. The board members exchanged nervous glances, their smugness gone. They had thought they were going to walk all over her, but now it was clear. She was not just some girl they could bully. She was someone who had done her homework, someone who had the knowledge and the will to fight back. As the evidence piled up, the emotional weight of the moment began to hit her. Each document she presented, each argument she made, was a small victory. She could feel the years of emotional struggle and doubt starting to melt away. She had been belittled, dismissed, and underestimated for so long. But now, this moment, she was standing tall. She was not just fighting for her home. She was fighting for her future, for her dignity, and for the memory of her parents. The room was no longer just a space of tension. It had become a place of triumph for her. With every piece of evidence she presented, she felt more powerful, more certain that this battle would end in her favor. The relief that came with each victory felt like a weight lifting off her shoulders. The courtroom, once filled with judgment and suspense, now felt like a place of justice. It was not just about winning anymore. It was about showing them all that she was capable of, so much more than they had ever imagined. And as the final pieces of their case fell apart, she could feel the healing beginning. It was not just a fight for a home. It was a fight for herself. And in that moment, she knew she had won. The Homeowner Association lawyer, still trying to regain some semblance of control, was fumbling through his papers. His face had lost the smugness it once carried, replaced by visible frustration. He had tried to stand his ground, but each argument he made only seemed weaker in the face of the evidence. She had presented the daughter, stood tall. She had fought so hard to get to this point. And now, it was time to finish what she had started. She knew this moment would define her future, but more than that, it would reclaim what the Homeowner Association had stolen from her: the memory of her parents, the home they had built, and her own dignity. The judge, who had been observing the case with a neutral expression, now looked over the evidence one last time. The silence in the courtroom was deafening. The jury seemed to be waiting, almost holding their breath to see what would happen next. The Homeowner Association members, once so confident, sat back in their seats, their faces betraying their panic. The judge finally spoke, his voice calm, but filled with authority. "Mr. Caldwell, the evidence presented by the defendant has raised serious questions about the validity of this case. You are left with no clear defense." The words echoed in the room. It felt like time had stopped. The daughter's eyes locked onto the judge's face, and for the first time in the entire trial, she felt a flicker of hope. Her heart beat faster as the realization sank in. This was it. She had done it. She had exposed their lies, and now the case was on the verge of being dismissed. The Homeowner Association lawyer opened his mouth, but no words came out. He glanced at his colleagues, who were equally speechless. The confidence they had walked in with had been shattered piece by piece, until they had nothing left to argue. The daughter could see the frustration on their faces. They had expected an easy win, but instead they had met someone who was far more prepared and determined than they ever could have imagined. The judge turned to the daughter, his voice soft but firm. "Miss Dawson, I find in your favor. The case is dismissed." A wave of relief washed over her like a flood. It was as though a heavy weight that had been pressing on her chest for so long had been lifted. The fear, the doubt, the overwhelming pressure, it all melted away in that moment. She had not just won the case, she had won back her dignity, her home, and her place in the world. For the first time since her parents' death, she felt like she had control again. She had faced the most difficult challenge of her life and come out victorious. The courtroom erupted into whispers, but she did not hear them. She was lost in the moment as the judge banged his gavel, signaling the official end of the case. She allowed herself a deep breath. The weight of the battle, the endless sleepless nights, the fear of losing everything, it all seemed to vanish. The relief was overwhelming, and for the first time in months, she felt at peace. This victory was not just about the home. It was about reclaiming her future. It was about proving to herself that she was stronger than they had ever imagined. And as she looked at the empty seat across the room where the Homeowner Association members had sat, she knew they would never underestimate her again. The courtroom was buzzing with whispers as the judge's final ruling sank in. The battle was over, but for the daughter, it felt like the beginning of something far bigger. As the judge's gavel struck, signaling the official end of the case, she stood there for a moment, just absorbing what had happened. She was not just victorious in court, she had found something deeper within herself, something that had been buried under grief, doubt, and fear for far too long. The moment the gavel fell, her family rushed to her. Her grandparents, aunts, uncles, everyone who had stood by her throughout this journey surrounded her in a whirlwind of hugs. Their faces were filled with pride, and there were no words needed. They knew how much this moment meant. They had seen her struggle, seen the pain she carried after losing her parents, and now they were witnessing her triumph. Her grandmother held her tight, tears streaming down her face. "I knew you could do it," she whispered, her voice thick with emotion. It was not just about winning the case. It was about watching her granddaughter grow into someone who could face the hardest challenges with unwavering strength. The daughter's parents had always pushed her to be strong, to stand up for herself even in the darkest times. They had taught her the value of knowledge, of doing the work, and of always fighting for what was right. Today, she had honored their memory in a way that made their teachings come alive. The victory was not just for her, it was for them too. As her family gathered around her, congratulating her, she realized something. This victory was not just a personal one, it was a stepping stone towards something much larger. She had just dismantled a powerful system, one that had been built on deception and greed, and in doing so, she had proven something to herself. She was capable of much more than she had ever thought possible. For the first time, she realized that her talents went beyond just defending herself. She had an understanding of the law that had given her the strength to fight back. But it was more than that. She had the intellect, the drive, and the compassion to stand up for others. This moment of victory had sparked something deep inside her. She was not just a girl fighting for her home anymore. She was someone who could change the world. She thought of all the people who had been oppressed, bullied, and silenced by powerful systems. People who did not have the resources or knowledge to fight back. The victory she had just achieved was not just for her family, it was for them too. It was for everyone who had ever been told they did not stand a chance, who had been pushed to the brink and made to feel small. Looking around at her family, at the people who had supported her, she knew that this was only the beginning. The seeds of future advocacy had been planted, and she would continue to grow, continue to fight not just for herself, but for others who could not fight for themselves. She had found her purpose, and it was bigger than she had ever imagined. As she left the courthouse with her family, she knew this moment would shape her future. She had become someone who would make a difference, who would not let injustice go unchecked. And in that reflection, she felt more alive, more hopeful than she ever had before.